I know I am more than just a gay lawyer. I don't need anyone else to tell me that. But I also know that for a large number of people who do not have the same privilege as I do, who do not have the same self insurance as I do, they need someone.
We are at JLF 2023. I am Mohit from Red FM, and today I am in the esteemed company of the Indian lawyer, activist, and the author of 15 Judgments, Saurabh Kirpal.
Thanks for having me and a pleasure to speak to you and your audience.
Thank you. How judgmental are you in your real life?
I think I'm not judgmental at all, but I think I'm the only one who believes that. Surprisingly, everybody else around me seems to think that I am very judgy, and but I think that's their failing, not my own. But to be honest, on a less light note, uh, we are judgmental in different ways to different people, depending on the interaction you have with them. So your family, you will be judgmental in a particular way because your expectations are different, and their expectations of you are different. When I speak to other people, members of the public, my expectations again are more muted. Therefore, I'm less judgmental. I think we judge those most harshly, most critically, who are the closest to us. And that's, I think, a feature of being a human. So I'm no more judgy than anyone else. Uh, that's just who I am.
That's a relief to know
Huh.
that. Talking about family, everybody's memory growing up in an Indian home is ki darwaza khulla rakho, band mat karo, right? Why is privacy such an undervalued or, misunderstood concept in India?
I think it is not just privacy, it is every right that we have, which is undervalued, underappreciated, partly because we grow up in a society where there are so many people clamoring for so little that the idea becomes that you live in a community and what belongs to you belongs to everybody else because tomorrow you may have a relative who doesn't have enough. So you learn to share. It becomes the idea from the individual morphs into that of the community. And a rights based discourse, the idea of individual rights, fundamental rights, are very much an individual concept. So, my right to free speech, my right to religion, my right to privacy is fundamentally incompatible to our rights. So, it is my right to free speech versus the community's right not to be offended. I don't think there is such a right, but there is a statement of such right. So these two exist in contradiction to each other: the individual rights and the idea of a community. And we in India, even though our constitution is one that values individual rights, in practice, very often, because we live in these joint family setups and the bigger setups, the sense of the community is very strong, which is a good thing in some ways. But this reminds me of, and I'll leave it at that, Kavita Krishnan, who otherwise, whose political ideology I may not always agree with. She's very, very to the left, but she has a lot of sense in what she says. She says the word bandhan means both a relationship and a bondage, right? The same word that shows you what living in Indian family is. It is both a relationship and a closeness, but it is also a bondage between the members of the family.
What are your two bits about the WhatsApp University? A lot of graduates today seem to be coming out of that.
Yes, I, I, there's so many PILs which are filed. I really wish some PIL would be filed about this as well. But of course, that's in jest. I think the as long as there is a demand for information, a supply will come. The problem in India is, and a large part of the world is, that supply of positive curated information with a proper editor backing it is actually dying down because of social media. There is people are reading less and less newspapers, but the thirst for information is there, and that thirst will be filled somehow and from some places, and therefore the WhatsApp University is simply filling in a void which exists. So what you truly need is better education. We need radios like yours to have not just music blaring at people, but interviews such as this, maybe more news. I know the government was very reluctant at one point of time to allow news to be broadcast on radio, but it needs to be democratized. Information needs to be democratized. Let people know the truth. Then they have less time for fake news and less ability also to cope with fake news. They just ignore it because they know better.
You've been a person who's been very open about your queer identity. How difficult does that make for you to navigate through the Indian system?
Yes, I've been openly gay. I am openly gay. It's not something I've stopped being. Uh, but as I've said, I'm not shouting that I'm queer from the rooftop. And that I think allowed me somewhat of a mid path to navigate my work in my initial years. When I was in my 20s, I was a lot less sure of myself than I am today. Uh, Age gives you that confidence, and success in your work, which I have fortunately gotten, also gives you that ability. So at that point, my queerness was something I dealt with more quietly, more openly. I believe today, since I have become more successful and more secure in myself, I now owe a responsibility to speak out for those who were in my position 20, 30 years ago. And so that's helped me navigate where I am today. So my career path and stream and my private life has not been this one continuous whole where I've behaved in a one way all of it. It's changed depending on the setting, the context, and my needs and purposes at that point of time.
But does it bother you to some level that that's become like a defining, part of your identity? Because one Google's you, and every article that I saw, was the keywords were always like, say, the first gay judge, right?
Yeah.
So does it bother you to some level?
Uh, Not at all. I'll tell you why. I know I am more than just a gay lawyer. I don't need anyone else to tell me that. But I also know that for a large number of people who do not have the same privilege as I do, who do not have the same self insurance as I do, they need someone to stand up for them and to be their icon, their hero, their ideal, or someone they wish they will become at some point of time. So when I am portrayed in the media as a gay lawyer, and when you Google and that's what comes up, so what if you are a gay lawyer who no one knows about, types in my name, sees that and feels satisfied? That to me is satisfactory. I don't care about anything else. My identity does not come from a Google search. My identity comes from the work I do every day, and I know the work I do every day. So that's absolutely all right. If that gives comfort to anybody, solace to anyone, I'm absolutely okay with it.
Talking about privilege, do you think privilege comes to define our future or destiny in a society like ours?
Unfortunately, yes. I wish we lived in a truly egalitarian society where I could say that privilege doesn't matter, that everyone can go ahead and accomplish for themselves what they want to. And often there are narratives to that extent that this is what our constitution, our economic structure permits. But the sad fact is, and if you see the Gini coefficient, the inequality index in India, the rich stay rich, the poor stay poor. And there is a lack of movement. So privilege does entitle you to something. And that is true not just of India, but it's true of certain form of economic model across the world, of which we have no substitute. I'm not a communist. I would say, a capitalist. So given that view, there is no easy structure which will allow a diminishment of that privilege. What I do think is necessary is enlargement of access. Uh, so while there may not be complete mobility, we need to at least start with encouraging it. I don't think we can stand for stasis and just say that, okay, this is what it is and give up. We can't accept status quo and sit in our hands and do nothing about it. It is because you asked me this question. We must all ask ourselves this question, because only when you recognize a problem do you start solving it.
True.
So I think we need to have more education. We need to allow the best universities to come up. I believe in reservations and positive discrimination. I mean, I may not make me not popular amongst a lot of people, but it'll make me not popular amongst people who have privilege. But I'm one of those who believes firmly in reservations. So that's the kind of things we need.
I'm so glad that we could interview you today. And my one key takeaway from this interview, and what I could sense from you, that you are one brave man, and we need more men like you in the system.
And
Thank,
Ben,
thank you so much
yes,
for giving us time today.
thank you so much for having me.
Lastly, we cannot let you go before signing this book for us.
Please, I do I make it out of the Red FM team
Yes, you can, sir.
or just leave it and then
Sure.
dedicate it to the people of India
True.
and your audience. I will date it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm a notorious thief of pens, so I'll give this back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
बजाते रहो 93.5 रेड एफएम बजाते रहो